friends, welcome back to my channel. Welcome to day 9 of VEDA. If you don't know what VEDA is, I will link the playlist up here for you to go check out. I think it's on this side. So go watch all the videos and come back and see me. Yesterday for VEDA, we did a best books of the year so far video. I thought it was only fair to do worst books of 2021 so far video. With yesterday's video, we kind of did it, we picked our favorites from each month, 9 books that I gave 1 star to, like the worst of the worst, and I was going to read them in order of when I read them, but I think I'm gonna kind of go from my least favorite, or from the best of the worst to the worst of the worst. So my bottom one is the worst book I've read this year. So my first couple 1-star reads are very forgettable, and I can't really tell you much about them other than they are labeled as thrillers. But I do not agree that they are thrillers because nothing scary happened. Literally nothing happened in the entire book. I was just reading and I got nothing. That was it. So the first one is Cross Her Heart by Sarah Pinborough. And this one really disappointed me because I've previously read from this author and I enjoyed it so much. So to read this follow-up from her, I just don't remember a single thing about the thriller. I just remember being bored and wanting to give up on this book. The next one is kind of the same, as in it's a thriller. It's Lady in the Lake by Laura Lippman. This one sounded very interesting because they find a body at the bottom of the lake and you kind of have to reverse to figure out whose body is it and what happened to her. So it had so much potential, but the narration is coming from the dead woman, which could work, but somehow it just lost me, and I thought this was yet another boring thriller that I would not recommend to my worst enemy. This next one is yet another thriller that is on my worst books. This one I had heard so many good things about, and there's a podcast element which usually I love. I Know You Know by Jilly McMillan. I didn't like this thriller either. The podcast almost had me intrigued, but I think it's about this missing girl who people are this detective is trying to find. That might have been why I didn't like it. I don't like detectives' point of view ever in literature, which is weird because that's what I look for in my TV shows. Can't explain that one. Oh, the next one I actually still own because I read it recently, so I haven't had a chance to unhaul it. And that is 6 by Harlan Coben. This is the second Harlan Coben book that I've read. The first one I really enjoyed, but this one follows this guy named Jack, who at the very beginning of this book watches his ex-girlfriend marry someone else, and she makes him promise to leave her alone. 6 years goes by, and he finds a obituary in the paper about his ex-girlfriend's husband has died. So now he can break that promise because he promised both of them, not just her. So he goes on this wild goose chase to look for an ex-girlfriend who he is still madly in love with. And I just did not care at all. Okay, so you never fully get the story of how they met or when they started dating, which was yet another problem with this book. But to my understanding, they only dated for a few months. They weren't even together that long. They weren't very serious. But for some reason, he just had to track her down. And I felt very lackluster, like very lukewarm about this thriller. I just didn't understand why he had to go find her, why he had to break his promise, or like why he still hung up on an ex-girlfriend who married someone else who is clearly not interested in him. I don't know. The next one was a book that I previously DNF'd. I was doing the Pop Sugar Reading Challenge. Maybe I'll make a video about it, but I don't know how many prompts I've fulfilled. I kind of gave up on keeping track of my Pop Sugar Reading Challenge. But one of the prompts was to read a book you previously DNF'd. For that, I read Wilder Girls by Rory Powers. And it's got potential because it's like survival on an island with all girls, and there's LGBT rep, which is great. I love seeing that. But overall, the book was just terrible. It was maybe it was a product. Okay, maybe I hated it because we were going through a pandemic at the time. But the book is essentially about all these girls who are in quarantine because there's some kind of virus that's attacking them, and the only way not to get it is to stay on this island and quarantine together. Maybe it was just too much for what was going on in the world that I didn't like it, or maybe it's just not my type of thing. It could be a combination of both. Okay, and then the next one was very disappointing because I've heard so many good things about this author, and I have since read more from Stephen Graham Jones. But the first thing I read by him was The Last Final Girl, which was actually decent, kind of. But the problem for me was that it was taking me out of the book by like saying, oh, the spotlight entered and the curtains opened, and it was kind of more like a play or like an act, like none of it was real, and I just felt very betrayed, and like it just took me out of the story that had potential, so I ultimately didn't like it. Okay, and then I have one more. We're down to my bottom 3. I have one of them physically because I haven't had a chance to unhaul it. This one hurts me. Like, this one physically hurts me because I know that this author has potential, and I still stayed up all night to finish his first book. One night. I got like 0 sleep that night because his first thriller was so gripping. So this is The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. What do I say about this? So, I've heard that if you like The Silent Patient, you probably won't like The Maidens. I can agree with that. However, I know that Gabby from Gabby Reads liked both of them, but okay. This is a dark academia murder mystery on a college campus where a professor is being accused of murder. And then they throw in some mythology in here because he's a mythology professor. And honestly, this was just a hot mess. From the characters who are very unlikable to the storyline that just never gripped me. I was severely disappointed with this book. And then for my worst book, I actually have 2 worst books of the year. I can't pick which one is worse because I thought I knew, but then I tried to film this and had issues, and talking through why I hated one of them just made me see that I hate them both equally. So, we're going to talk about 99 Days by Katie Cotogno and Suicide Notes by Michael Thomas Ford. Let's talk about 99 Days first. This follows this girl who I can't even remember her name because I hated her so much. She was a very unlikable person who went off to boarding school last year, and she came back for 99 days of the summer before she goes off to college. And she's coming back home to her small town where she was dating this guy, and she was cheating on her boyfriend named Patrick with his brother Gavin, I think? I don't even remember, but that is so messed up. But she was dating him and cheating on him with his brother. And everyone is mad at her and hates her, and even her best friend, who is their sister, won't talk to her anymore. So she just kind of wants to get through these 99 days so she can leave. But, of course, her being dumb, she starts dating Patrick's brother and then starts cheating on his brother with him. And, like, it was just too much. Like, I don't, cheating is like, no, but in a book, if the character learns from it and moves on and becomes a better person, then it's okay. But I just hated it because she was basically a lost cause, and she couldn't understand why anyone didn't like her, and it was her own fault. So that one was one that angered me, and that was definitely one of my worst books. The other one was Suicide Notes by Michael Thomas Ford. I read a lot of books that deal with suicide and like suicidal thoughts and things like that. Some of my favorite YA books are to do with bullying and suicide and that kind of thing. But this book, like, glorified suicide in like a fun way, and there was a particular part in the story where there was a death, and it was used as like a plot point just to kind of keep going with the story, but no one even acknowledged that death, and I felt like that character deserved more because they were a big part of the story, in my opinion, and to just kind of like graze over it like nothing, I just couldn't. That one angered me so much for such a different reason, but I couldn't do it. Before I go off on a tangent, I better stop there. If you've read any of these books, let me know in the comments below. Even if you like them, you know, we're allowed to have different opinions. That's okay. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and hit the little notification bell so you don't miss a single video in the month of August.